So thanks for joining. I'm Christina Tooley. I'm one of the product specialists at TSM. And today I'm going to be taking you through a high-level look and a chat about supply management. Really just looking at, how you can best manage your suppliers, what capabilities you have with Proactis and the suite of modules that we've got available to us. We did originally send the invite out. I think there was a slight error on the subject line of the invitation that came out this morning. It did refer to Marketplace. Today's session is purely on supplier management, although I might refer to Marketplace in some instances. But the Marketplace recording is actually available for download from our website. That was the last recording that we did about a month or so ago. So obviously, just in case that's the one you thought you were joining today, but hopefully you stay for the session. So we're going to be talking about supply management and really how we can help you with that process in your organisation. If you've got any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat or in the Q&A. Louise is going to be monitoring the chat and the Q&A as we go through the session. I won't be able to see the questions on my screen because obviously my PowerPoint and the software has hijacked it. But if we feel that they are relevant and they need to be answered during the session, I'll get interrupted. That's fine. Otherwise, we'll leave the questions till the end and I'll come to them. Although obviously, please feel free to message me directly afterwards or message Louise afterwards if you have any questions and you'd rather take them offline. Okay. As I mentioned, I'm Christina Tooley. I'm one of the Proactis specialists or product specialists at TSM, and I'm going to be presenting to you today. And we're talking about supply management. So Proactis is obviously a best-of-breed solution. It caters for purchase to pay all the way through with invoice capture and the supplier modules. So that includes supplier relationship management, contract management. We'll go through some of that throughout the presentation today. But supplier management really is a tool in order to help the procurement team build and maintain a valid list of suppliers that they want to engage with. Okay. By maintaining supplier management, by having a supplier management module, it helps streamline the whole process of onboarding suppliers, giving you visibility, identifying who you need to work with, who you want to work with, who you're transacting with, who you're not transacting with, who you want to continue to transact with moving forward. A lot of organisations don't understand their supplier base, and that in itself leads to a huge risk within the organisation. Okay, and that's what these tools really are designed to help you with. So source to contract, so supplier management sits within source to contract. I'll present the Proactis modules, the whole suite of modules in a slide in a moment, but we're going to be looking today specifically at supplier management, which is an element of source to contract. So within source to contract, you also have sourcing modules, contract management modules, content management, a couple of other bits and pieces, but we are focusing on supplier management today. It will just be a high-level session today for you to give you an introduction into the module. And if you want to have a look at and delve further into supplier management, obviously there's so much more to it that I'm going to be able to present to you in the short time that we have today, then we can arrange individual sessions with yourselves. So please reach out if you find the information useful and you want to just really discuss in more detail. So we're looking at really the best way to maintain and manage your supplier data and then hopefully integrate it to a finance system. Supplier management in itself can be a standalone module. It doesn't have to integrate anywhere. However, I will touch on as we go throughout the session the capabilities within the suite of modules. So obviously, Proactis is a modular-based system. You can have modules independently of each other, and I will touch on its full capabilities if you did have the solution integrated from end to end. Okay. So this really does map out the various areas of Proactis. We call it the 6 pillars, really, of success. And it highlights, if I just focus on the right-hand side for a moment, purchase ordering and invoicing. Those are the elements that organisations have. Generally, most organisations have a system where they can manage their ordering, they can receipt goods and services, and they can process invoices, whether it's manually or whether it's via an automated solution that reads the invoices electronically. These are all modules that are available within Proactis. Okay. However, those modules will integrate with the finance system. That's fine. However, suppliers and managing the actual supplier base that you have inside your finance system that you're working with within your P2P solution, how is that being done? How is that being dealt with? Who manages that? Who vets those suppliers? Who checks them? Who checks whether the certificates, whether they've got valid certificates, whether they've got the valid accreditations that they should be working to? You know, your organisation will require certain certifications potentially from suppliers. How do you check that? How do you communicate with your suppliers? Who does that? So these are all questions really that organisations need to be asking themselves. And then it can extend further. Obviously, you know, suppliers have the ability to self-serve. They can log in via a portal, manage their information, manage communication, provide you with the relevant documentation without you having to go and ask for it manually from every single supplier individually. So you have the capability to fire out emails to your whole supplier base if you need to. Okay, obviously with these modules come reporting capabilities. If you've got visibility of the information, if you've got the information in a centralized location, then you have the capability to report on that moving forward, to report on trends, report an analysis, KPIs, you can score your suppliers, etc. Okay, you can go a step further. So once you've got your suppliers, once you've decided you want to transact with that particular supplier, you can maintain contact information. So you have the capability, again, within an additional module to hold contracts. Contracts we'll talk about in another session. I'm not going to focus too much on contracts today. However, you have the capability to integrate that contract information with your supplier management module. And as you raise orders and you transact from your P2P solution, you can see the orders against the contract. So you really have that the level of detail that shows you your supplier master information through to the contract records and the orders taking place against that supplier and against that contract and the invoices that are being received into the business and obviously what you're paying. Okay, so with the suite of modules, you do have all of that. Marketplace, content buying, it has a tile on here. It's part of 6 pillars. Obviously, if you have suppliers that you have got negotiated contracts with, you know who you're buying from, you can buy directly from their website. So you can go out to Marketplace or use e-catalogues, however you want to refer to it, and you can buy directly from their website. Again, everything that you're buying potentially has the capability of integrating. So it's a fully integrated suite of modules that Proactis offers. And they would all integrate into your finance system as well. And this diagram just shows the modules that you potentially can be licensed for with Proactis. As I mentioned, it's all modular based. I've highlighted typically what some of our organisations would do with a phase 1, phase 2 approach. That's not a rule, obviously. Every organisation is very different. Some organisations will start with elements on the left-hand side of the screen. So they'll start with just a supply directory, then potentially move it forward and have a contract repository. And it doesn't have to be integrated at all to P2P modules. It can be integrated directly to another application if necessary. Proactis has these capabilities, but typically what we find within our client base is we start with ordering and invoicing, and then as the organisation becomes more familiar with the modules, they then need the capability to actually review the suppliers that they're working with, and they would roll out supplier management and contract management. But as I've mentioned, it's very modular based, and you can see here all its capabilities. I'm not going to go through them all today, but I can provide you a copy of the slides will be available for download after the session, along with a recording. So supplier management, onboarding capabilities, reduce risk, improve supplier relationships. So if you know who you're working with, you know, and you're not just buying from suppliers that you don't have a negotiated contract with necessarily, or you don't know who they are and you've got maverick spend, you're likely to pay your suppliers outside of the payment terms. Potentially suppliers are sending invoices in and you don't even know who they are. There's all sorts of risks and issues potentially when you don't know your supplier base. So that's the key. Having a single location for your supplier information will eliminate administrative effort. It enables the organisation as a whole to be able to log in and see the supplier information in one central location. They don't have to have access to the finance system as such, but via Proactis and supplier management, it gives them a different view, a different front end, additional reporting capabilities to view the information that they might need to see and help them to manage their suppliers more efficiently. Enable controlled supplier self-service. So the suppliers do have the ability, I will show you, they can log in, they can self-serve, they can maintain their own information, they can provide you with certificates and accreditations, they can upload their documents, they can maintain their users, they can maintain the types of services or good they provide you with, or their company registration details. So they have the ability to self-serve. And also, where you've got a fully integrated solution, the suppliers have the capability to view directly from the portal that's made available to them, the orders and the invoices that are being raised for them. So where you've got it fully integrated, they've got visibility of that information as well. Reporting and analysis. So I'll touch on that as we go through the demo today. So we're going to talk about how to onboard a supplier. What ways can you use to onboard a supplier within the utility? We'll look at the supplier directory. So I'll dip into the software. It's not all slides. This is, I think, the last slide that I'm going to present today. We'll look at the supplier directory, really how to inquire on your suppliers, how they even get into the directory. So we'll talk about that. And how you engage with them. So what options do you have available to you? Once your suppliers are in the directory, what do you do? Or what can you do moving forward? How do your suppliers respond? So once you've sent something out to them, how do they actually respond back to you? So how does that work? What do the suppliers see? So I'll show you from a supplier's perspective as well when we demo. And then obviously you've got reporting and analysis capabilities. And as I've mentioned, if you do have any questions, obviously just pop them in the chat. I don't want you to forget, obviously, there's no need to wait till the end, but I may come to those questions at the end of the session. So how do you onboard your, there is one more slide. How do you onboard your supplier? There's various ways of achieving this. Website, they can register on the portal, they can log in and register. You can send them a link, an invitation, where they can click on the link and they can log in and then register. Questionnaires obviously will be sent from the utility depending on what questions you want to ask them, where questions can be scored as well. Obviously, when you send out questionnaires, they're constructed in a particular way to capture the information that you need to really understand the supplier that you're working with. And from that point forward, you can decide whether you want to continue to engage with them. So as you send out your questionnaires, receive responses, you can score your supplier. You can then, there will be passed through like an approval workflow where you can decide whether you want to onboard them, in which case they'll be integrated into the finance system as an active supplier and then back into Proactis, available to raise orders or invoices against. Or you can decide, no, I'm not going to work with this supplier or transact with this supplier. It may even be an existing supplier that you've decided you no longer want to maintain a relationship with, in which case they'll be disabled from the finance system automatically if you've got the integration on, and also disabled in Proactis P2P. You can import suppliers from Excel. So if you're rolling out the module utility to an existing supplier base, you can upload your suppliers. Or you can raise supplier proposals. So supplier proposals within supplier management are initiated by the procurement team. Somebody within procurement might have a request where somebody said, I want to work with this supplier. So it gives them an opportunity to go in and raise a proposal. I propose I want to work with this supplier. It's an internal request. It needs to be approved. Once it's approved, then obviously you can then start engaging with your supplier and sending invitations out for them to register or engage with you. So I'll show you some of the invitation options that we have as we go through the demo. So I'm just going to dip out of this screen now and I will dip into software. Excuse me. So there are two elements to the supplier management tool. So we've got the supplier network where the supplier would log in and view any notifications they have outstanding for them or manage their credentials. So I'm just going to log in as one of my suppliers and a user. So obviously they're not going to just get access to this. Suppliers are going to be sent a link of some sort and they will then be able to click on the link and log in with some credentials or set themselves up. They can obviously register. Okay. They'll need to have been provided with an access code in order for them to access the system initially anyway. So you're not going to get maverick random suppliers accessing supplier management without valid credentials. But they do have the ability, once they've got some sort of a link, to sign into the application. It's all web-based. They don't require anything from their side to be installed. There's no installation, nothing at all necessary, just access to a browser and obviously the link. And this is their home screen. Okay, so directly from the home screen, they have the ability to view any notifications they have outstanding with them, any opportunities, any requests. And here you can see where we have extended capability to bring through orders. If you have P2P and you have the solution integrated, which again, you don't have to do, you can really, the supplier has the ability to view the orders that are being raised with them and the invoices and any contracts. You can see we've got purchase to pay via orders and invoicing and credits. We've got contracts, we've got requests, we've got additional options like auctions as well. But as we navigate through, you'll see some of the options we have available to us. If they've got any new requests, they can see them within the requests area of the system. So here you can see this particular supplier, Dell, there's an invitation to engage with them and it's awaiting a response. So as and when they have something to action, they will be notified. They'll be notified that there's a task for them to deal with. They'll get an email with the relevant text that you've entered on your request up front, and they'll have a link to log into the portal, into the actual request that's waiting for them to complete. Okay. The other side of supply management, so we will come back to that, is the buyer side. So I'm just going to log in to my organisation. Oops, just bear with me. Right, password in. Okay, so this is where you would log in. As if you had supply management, this is where you would log in to manage all of your suppliers, view your supply directory and engage with your suppliers from this side. Okay, so as I sign in, and you can use single sign-on, obviously. I'm using usernames and passwords so I can get in and out of the system as different people, but you typically would use single sign-on. And depending on who you are, obviously will control as you log into supplier management, it will control what you can see, what you can do. I'm obviously an admin. I've got access to all the various options and utilities and all the modules that are available to me. But we will be focusing on SRM for today's session. Okay, so my home screen, I can choose what I want to see on my home screen. I've got it showing my supplier directory. If I just navigate to my supplier directory, I can see all my suppliers that I'm engaged with, engaging with, requesting, inviting. If I page through, you can see the various statuses. They're recognised, they're not necessarily onboarded. But depending on what the request is, it will go through a workflow. And you can see where they've been interfaced with the finance system. So once they've been fully approved, they will go through into the finance system, depending on how you've got your system set up and how you want your integration to work. Obviously, you've got some flexibility around that. Okay. Directly from this screen, you do have the ability to inquire using various methods and tools. You can inquire based on geographical region if you wanted to, or product type, or supplier status. You can type the name of the supplier in and it will return the supplier. If I just use the advanced search facility, it just shows you some of the additional capabilities you have. It's quite a good search. Obviously, you've got reporting capabilities as well as the inquiries, but as a standard inquiry, it does cover quite a lot of information. And if I just page through, you can create additional analysis that you can report on as well. If you wanted to report on, for example, category of spend, you can do so. So I'm just going to cancel that and I'm going to just search for my supplier, Dell. Oops, cancel. Let's use the search facility. There we go. This is the supplier I'm going to look through today and work with. It is already interfaced with the supply finance system. This supplier is already a supplier that I am working with, I'm engaging with. However, that doesn't mean that communication stops. Just because you've onboarded a supplier doesn't mean that's it and there are no risks moving forward. As part of due diligence, it's important for organisations to constantly keep in contact with their supplier base to really understand what their supplier is doing, how they're evolving, if there are any risks. I mean, the last thing an organisation wants is to have a relationship with a supplier where they're supplying you with quite a specific product set or service, and you only have that with one supplier. In the event that they have credit issues or they cease to trade, how does that affect your business? Without having a tool and the visibility of the suppliers that you're working with and that constant communication and the ability to do that, how can you identify where potentially there may be risks that will affect your business moving forward? If they can't provide you with that product, it may affect you with what you do. So obviously there are huge risks there, and it really is about understanding them. So this is one I've interfaced with the finance system. I'm going to use it in the demo today. I'm just going to have a look at this supplier and some of the capabilities we have with inquiring by supplier management area of the system. So obviously we've got our supplier information. The supplier can determine what kind of categories they're assigned to. The supplier has the ability to update their address information. They can also add additional users. They do get approved. So if a supplier does add an additional user, it does notify you and you do have to approve them before they can log in. Contact information is also maintained in here. Any documents that they've updated or they've provided you with will be visible. Any questionnaires that they've previously responded to will be visible here as well. You can drill down into those questionnaires and view if they relate to scoring, if they've been scored or require scoring, then you'll be able to see that information as well. You can see it within ratings as well. So based on the information they've been providing you over time, how much of a risk are they? Should we be working with them, or do they pose a risk to our business? So it really does allow you to analyse the information that's coming in from the supplier as and when you fire out those questionnaires where you want information from them. You can have notes. We've got additional supplier information, so the type of spend basically, which allows us to report and analyse further across our supplier base. If you had contracts with your suppliers, then obviously you had the contract management module, you'd be able to click in and view the contract details against this particular supplier, which would also be available directly from the contracts area of the system. Okay. In the event that I want to initiate a new supplier to work with, I'd like to work with somebody new. I've got the ability to use the supplier proposals option. Now, I have presented this before. There will be a recording, a full recording on supplier proposals on our website, which you have the ability to download. So there'll be a recording and some slides if you wanted to look at that in a bit more detail. But I'm just going to touch on it briefly today. This is quite a high-level presentation today. But if I want to establish a relationship with somebody, I can request that. So I can log in and I can say, I'd like to work with somebody new. So let's just say I want to work with a new software supplier. I'm not going to put a company registration number in. I'm going to ignore that information. I'm going to put an email address in and a phone number. And as I navigate through it, depending on the information that I've entered, it will check the database. It will check whether I'm already engaged with somebody that matches that criteria. So if I've got somebody in the system, a supplier in the system that has the same email address or phone number or company registration number, if I've used that, it will validate and warn me. I can enter address details and a justification. But that will need to be approved. So just by me raising this request doesn't necessarily mean I'm creating a new supplier. It's just one way to start the process of initiating a supplier relationship. So I'm just going to click OK. And it's warning me. So the supplier proposal utility, as I mentioned, will warn you if the supplier is already registered. It warns you that there are other suppliers that have the same credentials as the one you're trying to create. It stops duplications. Okay, so if you've got, I don't know, it can potentially also stop fraud. So somebody trying to create another account with the same registration details, same postcode, you know, obviously, you know, it does alert you, which is quite key to whether or not you want to create this new relationship or whether you need to. If you've already got a supplier that provides a particular service or goods, do you need another one? But it does alert you, and that's the key. I'm not going to continue past this, just showing you the principle of how potentially you can initiate that original relationship with the supplier, okay, with a new supplier that you want to work with. However, if you've got suppliers that you're already working with, or say, for example, you've loaded all your suppliers up into supplier management because you want to send them all out a questionnaire, you want to say, okay, you want to send them out something that they need to complete to ensure they're accredited and they meet your standards, then you can do so. You can do this using batches. So this is one way of communicating with your supplier base, either by selecting a few suppliers or one supplier, or multiple suppliers, or the whole supplier directory. So you've got options around that. And I'm going to show you how that works now. So I'm going to go into request batches, and I'm going to create a new invitation. So it shows you the communication you already have. It shows you whether the batches have been issued, whether they're completed, and you can drill down and view the information in those. So we have a look at one that's been completed. There was a supplier review that went out on the 25th of April. Let's have a look at that. I can see that responses were received and they were also scored, and the scores came back as 100%. That's fine. Obviously, if they'd come back lower, I would potentially want to be notified about that. Okay. I can see who the notifications went out to. It went to Dell. I can see the questionnaire. Oh, there's no questionnaire. Oh, here we go. There is a questionnaire. So I can see the questionnaire. I don't have responses in there. It is my demo system, but obviously you would have all responses in here and show the scoring as well. And if there's any additional correspondence, it will be visible in here too. I'm just going to close that screen. So if I create a new batch, I want to send out, let's just call it a supplier review, but we want to review our suppliers for May. So let's call it a supplier review. You've got all these options, obviously, depending on what it is you're doing. You've got the invitation to register that you would send out to your supplier that's clicked on the link and wants to engage with you potentially. You've got an invitation to engage as well. You've got an invitation for a relationship, or if it's an existing supplier, you might want to send them out a review. Obviously, you've got contract review options as well and trading relationship reviews as well. So I'm just going to click next. You just select a template. You can have multiple templates, and a template will determine the questions that are being pulled through onto the questionnaire that's going to go out to the supplier, or the format of the email they're going to receive. And I can click next. Who's going to perform the review? Suppliers. And it will open up another screen where I can select the suppliers I want to engage with. So I'm going to add my suppliers. At this point, I can add all of my suppliers if I wish to, or I can choose. So I'm going to just select Dell and click OK. But obviously, this can go out to multiple suppliers. The questionnaires. So it will bring up the default questionnaire based on the template that I used. You do have the ability to go in and review the sections, edit the sections as you wish, as necessary. You can edit the correspondence that's going out to the supplier. Obviously, they're going to receive an email. So when you are engaging with them, when you are communicating with them, they need to be made aware that there's something awaiting their attention. So the email that goes out to them can be edited here. They'll receive, or the contacts against the supplier record will receive communication, and they can click on the link and navigate into their supplier screen where they can maintain and respond directly to you. So I'm just going to save that, and all I need to do is issue it. I can issue an email that will come from Touchstone or TSM, and let's just change my email address. Okay, and I can click next, and I can issue it immediately. I can set a schedule on supplier reviews as well. I don't have to do it every month. I can set an automatic schedule that will go out to the supplier. So that's now been issued. So at some point, they're going to receive an email notification, and then when they log in to their screen, hopefully it will update in a timely fashion. There we go, we've got customer requests. So they're going to get notified, they can drill down, look at their requests. Here's our supplier review that we just issued them with, and it's awaiting for a response. So directly from here, they have the capability again to have a look at their information. They can maintain their business information. So if they wanted to update their information, their organisational type, their registration numbers, they've got the capability to do so. If they do update anything in these screens, you do get notified. They can update their addresses, users, what they sell. So I'm not going to go through every single field here, but obviously they can self-serve. That's the important thing here that we're trying to get to. Okay, but as I drill down into my request, I can respond. So the supplier has the ability to respond directly to the questions that you've sent them. So there are some default responses in here. You can see that I've got dots on there, so I don't have to go through every single field. But if I'm happy with that, I can validate. If it doesn't find any issues, I potentially can submit. And that's been dealt with, that's been updated. So if I go in here now and refresh the screen, it's been issued and it's been responded to. So straight away, obviously, the system is updating with what the supplier has responded with. It's come up in here. I can see that they've responded, and I can go in and I can view their actual response. So this is their response. I haven't scored it yet. So I have the ability to go in and view the information, and I can score that questionnaire as I see fit. Okay. So we've had a look at, just as a recap so far, and obviously, as I said, it is quite a high level demo. I'm going through detail, but there's more detail potentially we could go through, obviously. We've had a look at the supplier directory. We've had a talk about how we can bring suppliers into the directory, the purpose of it. So obviously the key here is to know your supplier. That's the key. Do you know your suppliers? If you don't, then obviously that's something you really do need to consider as an organisation. If you don't know your suppliers, you don't know the risks that are out there with who you're working with. So knowing your supplier means having a central location where you can view, manage and maintain those supplier communications and relationships. Okay, whether it's integrated into P2P and invoicing and the finance system, or whether it's a standalone module. So you have those options available to you. So that's your supplier directory. And then obviously communicating with your supplier. We've looked at proposals, communicating with your supplier with you batches. So obviously you've got the option to have invitations to register, invitations to engage, supplier reviews, etc. You've got lots of options and lots of capabilities. Each one of those, you can have multiple templates for each, and you can have lots of different questionnaires in the background, but they're preset. You don't have to create them all from scratch every single time. So it saves you time. It saves a massive admin overhead. Okay. The supplier has the ability to respond to any communication that you send them. They've got the ability to respond. If they don't respond, you can disable them. If you disable them and you've got the integration, it will disable them in your finance system as well. That's quite key. It's not just about onboarding them, it's about managing the relationship moving forward and deciding whether you want to work with them continuously.
Christina, Boris has just got a quick question, and he asked, can suppliers update their own bank account details?
So that's actually quite a good question. So within the supplier element, so let's just have a look at our business. So we can potentially create another tile that has information against it that can hold bank account information, or we can provide it on a questionnaire that they respond to. So we can ask them to provide their bank details on a questionnaire that then integrates and comes back in to your supplier review, and obviously all questionnaires are held and maintained, and obviously you can report on that information, and if it's being captured then you can integrate it moving forward. But obviously you'd want to check that. You'd want to check that as well. Okay. But yeah, it's a good question. Definitely. And then obviously, you know, we've got our suppliers, we've sent out our questionnaires, we've received all the information. At some point you want to review that or analyze the data that's coming in. So there are different ways of analyzing information. You have got reports available to you, you've got advanced reporting. Existing clients that use P2P will be very familiar with advanced reporting. It's part of the Proactis suite of modules and allows you to report over the data. Supplier management offers dashboards as well. So you do have supplier management dashboards that you can view. You can have drill down capabilities on them. I haven't got them configured at the moment, but you can have drill downs on these dashboards. You can create more. Obviously, I've just got a few views here, but you can see the registrations by month, suppliers based on category. You can see your supplier statuses. So how many suppliers have been interfaced? Out of all the suppliers within your directory, which percentage have been interfaced and which haven't? Who have been registered, who have not reviewed? You know, if you've rejected any, then obviously you can see that information as well. So these can be configurable. Suppliers by region, And then obviously you may want to see ratings. So how many reviews have taken place? How many have responded? What's the average of response? Supplier details, you can see alerts. So you can see if they didn't conform and the percentage wasn't high enough, it wouldn't appear as green, it would appear as red. So obviously it allows you from a quick view to view your supplier base, really. And so see who's a high risk supplier. Okay. You do have the ability to go in, as I mentioned, and run reports as well. I'm going to just take you in very quickly. Again, the report library, if you are familiar with P2P, then you will be familiar with this utility. It's part of the standard suite of modules. It's part of your license. But you can create your own reports here. You can create your own reports, you can manage your reports, you can decide who's going to have permissions to view and execute those reports. But you've got the ability to view information, for example, supplier proposals. Who have you proposed that you wanted to work with over a certain period of time? It shows your full supplier listing, your contract listing. Let me just drill down further if we've got any more reports in here, standard reports. Obviously, if you're running contract management, you may want to inquire on your contract information, quotes, trading relationships, etc. So obviously there are a whole suite of reports in here that you can run or that you can create yourself. So you have the capability to create your own reports and decide what data you want to interrogate within the product. Okay. So this was as I mentioned, it was a high level look at supply management today. So I've presented a few slides. I've taken you through the utility at high level. Obviously, there are more options in here. If you want a specific demo, then we can arrange that where we can go into the modules in a lot more detail. That's absolutely fine. Please reach out to Louise or myself if you would like us to arrange that, or if you just want to have a conversation about suppliers and risk and, you know, how you can manage this, even if it's not necessarily with Proactis. We're happy to have those conversations with you. So again, please reach out. It doesn't necessarily have to be Proactis specific. Yeah. Are there any more questions from anyone? Louise, are there any questions? Does anyone have another question?
There's nothing in the chat just yet.
Okay. Okay, so I mean, I'm happy to wrap up the session today. Thank you all for joining. If you do think of anything, then please do let us know, and we'll be happy to respond and take those questions offline.
That's amazing. Thank you, Christina.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.